Hey everybody, this week marks week one of us having our birds. This week here was a little bit of a struggle. We kept us on our toes here a little bit. We had to be on our game a little bit more than what we had planned on, but we made it through it. Wasn't nothing we couldn't handle. The chicks are doing well, and that's what we'll review and go over with you here this week. Hey everybody, like I said, this marks week one of us having our chicks. Week one it was a little crazy. We had some up and down temps here in Ohio, and that caused us to have to really monitor our brooder temp. Our brooder temp was either way too hot or way too cold. And one of the things that really bothered me is when I would look at them in the mornings, they were either piled on each other or they were scattered in the corners and piled on each other in the corners trying to get away from the heat. So one of the things that we really did was try to play around with the lamps. And I know I showed you in one of my beginning videos here when I was getting my brooder ready of the chains and the lamps and all that. So I would raise one, lower, keep one down. It just I never really found that sweet spot. The birds was always piled on each other, and you really don't want your birds piled on each other because that's going to create an issue. The smaller birds will end up getting suffocated, or smaller birds will get down on the bottom and can't get out, and they'll get a hurt leg, hurt wing, or something will happen to damage that bird or hurt that bird or even kill the bird. And that's what we don't want. So what I noticed that we couldn't really get that brooder temperature where we needed it to. So what I started doing was I started turning this light off in the afternoons and turning it back on in the mornings. But even then, in the mornings, I noticed when I would come out and just kind of peek in on them, when I'd get up in the mornings, a lot of times they were still scattered away from that light. So I really couldn't get an idea of what they wanted. So what I did is I angled that lamp. That lamp there is kind of angled towards the back and in the corner. So it's really not a lot of direct heat down on a specific area in the brooder, but it's kind of keeping it warm a little bit more. So the ones that want the direct heat will usually be under this lamp, and the ones that don't want the direct heat and just want a little bit of warmth would be over here. And that kind of kept the birds kind of not really congregated all on one, piling on each other, but it just kind of kept them to where they were just kind of they had their own space in there, and they were able to go where they wanted to and be comfortable. And that's one of the things that we struggled with this week, is trying to keep that comfortable level for the birds. Because if you watch the birds will tell you what they want. You just kind of gotta watch them. Now, when you change their water out, they're going to go down and try to drink all the water they can, and then they might get a little chilled. They will kind of, after they eat and drink, they will kind of get under the lamps a little bit. So kind of try to watch how they are before you feed them, or in between feeding and changing their water out. Another issue we had was our water. They seem to be really sucking down a lot of water this time, and this week here. And it went from, almost out of water, twice a day to, because I would come in the mornings before I left, I'd feed them, change their water out, and they always had a little bit of water left. And then it got to the point where in the evenings when I would change their water out, and in the mornings they were bone dry. So I'd change it over before in the evenings. They had plenty of water overnight, but then in the mornings they were bone dry. So we had to go up to a 3-gallon feeder or water, and that seems to be doing good. But I'm also noticing each morning that thing's lower and lower and lower. And some of that could have been because of the heat in the brooder and them trying to cool themselves a little bit. But for the most part, their feed is picking up, their water intake is picking up, and on top of that, manure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my chicks and show you a video of how they're doing from inside the brooder. one of the things I have found out, that they do not like my ring finger because it's shiny and they will come after it. That's one of the things you learn. Feed time. So everybody, now you see that the chicks are doing well. One of the things you probably seen me doing in that video was scraping a board. And what I was doing in that video was scraping all the manure off the boards that I originally put in there to keep the feeders and the water up off the wood shavings, so it wasn't sinking down in the wood shavings and them getting the shavings all in their feed and their water. That helps out when they're younger, but as they get older, they're going to kick that stuff all over the place. But what I'm doing is I'm scraping the manure off and I'm putting it into the wood shavings that are already in there. And then I'm going to turn those shavings, and I do that every day during the first week. Every day I do that and then turn it over and then put fresh on top of that. And that kind of holds the odor down a little bit. And each week that wood shavings gets cleaned out, fresh put in, and then that stuff goes out on a compost pile. One of the things that we really didn't have or didn't see was pasty butt. I don't have a video of that. I didn't have it this time. If something happens and I do develop it, which I doubt any of these birds will have that because they seem to be doing very well. But pasty butt is where the manure builds up on the rear end of the bird and it plugs them up. And I don't have a video. If something comes up, I will show you the video of that, because you gotta make sure you take care of that as soon as you realize it, because it can harm the bird, and we don't want that. But if for some reason you do have that issue or think that you may be developing that issue, Josh from Stony Ridge Farms has a wonderful video on what to do and how to take care of that. He's a good guy. He's another YouTuber. I'm a big fan of his. So hopefully you'll be a big fan of mine. But this next week, what we're going to focus on is lowering the brooder temperature just a little bit. But again, we kind of got to play that game. We got to watch our temps outside. We got to work that. We're going to start introducing them to some grit, and then we're going to start getting them to the point to where we're going to take them off the chick grower and put them on the regular meat bird food that they'll have. And do the 12 hours on feed, 12 hours off feed, but make sure they have plenty of water. I hope everybody has a good week. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit the subscribe button. I need more subscribers. Get the word out. I need more subscribers so I can keep this thing going. Everybody have a good weekend, good week, and be careful.